All right, get through it. Because I got some stuff, but I can roll with whatever you got. So
yeah,
let's do it.
This is BlissVille, Misadventures in BlissVille. I'm David Lawler. I'm joined by my buddy Andrew LeGank. Today, we're going to talk about those insufferable pricks, and I call them Millenials, or Generation Y, the generation that came maybe 10 years after Andrew and my generation. We're Generation X. We're even worse, and then our parents are even more worse than that. But anyway, I'm going to start this off with this article that Andrew brought to my attention in Forbes, I believe, American Millennials being among the world's least skilled workers. So I read a little bit that the novelist Brett Easton Ellis wrote for Vanity Fair. It was called Generation Wuss. It's a very amusing article. So I thought I'd lead with this because
nonetheless.
I thought I'd lead with this because it goes back to the source. It does. Whenever you're talking about a problem, you should always go back to the source, at least if you want to have a nice analytical mind and an informed opinion about it. So I figured I did a couple of episodes about action figures with my friend Colin Hall a couple of weeks back, and I used an audio clip from a show that was made in 1972, the year I was born, in November. It was a month after I was born. It was called Free to Be You and Me, and it was produced by Marlo Thomas and the Ms. Foundation. And psychologically, this was the beginning of the me decade, not just for adults, but for children. So for me, it doesn't just start with millennials, people born from the early 80s and on, but with Generation X, the children of baby boomers, because of this undeserved sense of entitlement. Born from their parents and then passed on to their children. Baby boomers grew up after the world wars. There was a newfound prosperity, stimulated economy, but they still had to deal with their parents, who are called the greatest generation, mostly hardcore drinkers and wife beaters, but the children of that generation lashed out against their parents by becoming hippies.
I prefer to think of them as the people who gave us the wonderful, great, benevolent thing known as Social Security, withholding of taxes from our paychecks, and all kinds of other shit that they just fucking let happen here while they were being the greatest generation overseas and fighting wars they didn't even know whether they were fighting them.
Yeah. But also the alcoholism and wife beating is important.
Well, alcoholism and wife beating, yeah. But
you were required to beat your wife back in those days.
Back in my day, I had to beat your wife. Yeah.
So they became hippies, and they develop addiction to drugs and sex, and then they turn around and tell us, as our parents, not to do all the fun, silly, potentially dangerous things they did when they were kids. Just say no to drugs and wear condoms, and I know we started AIDS, but you guys, don't do all that.
But wait, before I forget, you touched on something that's kind of an important part of what I want to bring up in this discussion, which is what you were talking about with your action figures and that what was that feminist video that you were talking about?
Free to Be You and Me. It's what it did was it instilled an unnecessary sense of entitlement in children. It gave them I wrote some really great notes on it. Well, get back to that. I just wanted to speak my piece on this. Is they started the social engineering really when we were kids in the 70s, and it was different. It really wasn't as organized as it has now gotten. Well, yeah.
But back when we were kids, there was a movement going on where they wanted us to think of everybody as our friend. That was going on all across the nation.
Yeah, now that was the beginning of it. That's what started that. It built up into that.
In New York, there was another thing that was added to it when I was a kid that was a lot more damaging, and that was the idea that all boys are predators and that the girl is in charge. When it comes to all dating, any dating interaction, and look, I because of this, I had a lot to overcome because of it, because it was drilled into my head in New York City public schools, and there were other people that I know who are still I know a dude who's in his 40s and he's still a virgin.
Really?
He grew up with this kind of stuff being beaten into his head, and he's never been able to get around it. I know several people who are like that. like who could never get past this stuff. But they were just practicing on us. These people today, the millennials, they are the most socially engineered and propagandized group of people, that the generation that has ever existed in this nation. And that is what really, I think, is at the root of why they are where they are now, which is lost, you know? But anyway, I'm sorry. Go on. What
was I saying?
I don't know. I don't listen to you.
Action figures, yeah.
Yeah.
Used to collect G.I. Joe. No, looking at our parents' behavior, I think our generation was the first to stop caring. Remember, it was all apathy and basically, fuck you, Dad, pass the Cheerios kind of logic. So we sought revenge for all that hypocrisy. So we did the opposite of what our parents instructed. So by the 90s, we were growing up. The pop culture exploded. Everybody wanted to be creative. Everybody wanted to be an artist. So you see an upswing in bullshit liberal arts degrees. Let's just put it out there that the media is dead. The reason why I call liberal arts a form of bullshit is because one doesn't have to attend an institute of higher learning in order to obtain talent. You can nurture the talent, but if it isn't already there, it's never going to be there. That's true. These kids, with their hula hoops and ice cream and the rock music, they go to college to study what they essentially already know. And then they wind up amassing huge student loan bills, and then they bitch and moan when they realize they can't get enough work to pay off those bills. So meanwhile, at the time, we're talking the mid to late 90s now, technical and vocational institutes couldn't give away degrees. Being a welder or being an engineer wasn't sexy. So people wanted to be sexy.
It's still not, but those people are the ones who actually make money.
Yes. It should be obvious when you see that you can get a full scholarship ride at a university when you study something useful to society, like applied mathematics, life sciences, geology, physics, technology. They'll give you a full scholarship if you're interested in studying those things because you're actually going to contribute. You know, and we have pretty much reached the nadir. I can't believe I'm going to use the word nadir. I sound like such a fucking intellectual here, but we've reached the nadir of creativity in the culture. We need more hands-on people out there. We need people to build bridges. Of course, a lot of this can go back to maybe government policy. For instance, I saw a report that basically all of our infrastructure in this country is crumbling. It's falling apart. And a lot of it is due to the fact that government doesn't want to spend money on that kind of stuff. I have no idea why.
They appropriate tons of money towards it and then spend it on other things and then tell us that they need more money because they stole it. And at the end of the day, I don't really believe that our infrastructure is really crumbling, but our infrastructure is not in the greatest of shape because, probably 10 cents out of every dollar that's supposed to go to it is all that goes to it. Everything else is going to build teapot museums for fucking to help get some senator reelected in Iowa.
This is why all the teapots have been vanishing all across the Northeast.
Exactly. That's the solving of the mystery right there. It's all Joni Ernst's fault.
So you're not going to get a scholarship to study literature unless you apply for a Genius Grant, which is hilarious unto itself. You're not going to get a scholarship studying film or acting, or the greatest, sickest joke of all, writing. A writer is his or her experience. The education is life, not some stuffy, silly college environment. So
I agree so much. There's if I may just break in with a little story that I have here. In Missouri, we were living up the block from a couple that was divorcing and had a kid who was just going into college. And they were mortgaging their entire life to send him to some school because he wanted to be a writer, so he had to go to the right school where, that's where all the writers go. Yeah. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me, dude. I would put him up in an apartment and tell him to write for me for like 2 years, come up with some stuff. You write for a while, and then we'll decide what you're going to do. I'll pay your rent for a year, and you write me some stuff. Right. Because doing it is what you need to do. You don't need to go to some school and schmooze and hobnob. You need to fucking write something.
I'd say probably the only useful education you can get as a writer, other than your own life experience, is probably just networking. Get your name out there. I mean, that's probably the best thing you can do, because everybody thinks they're a goddamn writer these days.
You don't want to pay $100,000 a year or whatever it is in order to have that experience, and that's crazy. You know, these people are selling their house and stuff so that they can afford to send their kid to a school to go be a writer. That's a joke. I mean, go be a writer. You don't need to go to school to be a writer. Just write.
So there's an expectation that is instilled in children from a very early age that in order to succeed in life, you have to make enormous sums of money, and everybody wants to be rich because of a failing economy, less employment opportunity or whatever. Let's not forget that Americans tend to be lazy. I still believe this. Why stand when you can sit? Why go outside and play in the park when you can just pop a pill?
Well, I think it's actually worse than that. It's like it's instilled in kids from a very young age that if they don't go to college, they'll be destitute.
Yeah. And
if they do become a plumber, who, by the way, makes more than most people who went to college.
Yep.
If they do that, they will be a loser who never makes anything of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's simply not true. Most of these people who go to college these days, most of them are coming out with skills where they cannot be hired. Nobody's, have you ever interviewed any of these people for a job? It's a joke. I mean, these people are just fucking pathetic. They can't read, they can't write, they can't follow directions, they can't do anything.
Well, you know what's sad? Okay, like, I have a friend who got a master's and a doctorate in psychology. She got a job as a social worker based on the degree that she had, right? They're not hiring to the academic level of a lot of these students. This is actually something that it's part of, and there's plenty of job opportunities out there, but she's working as a social worker and she's barely pulling down $30 a year. And she's
where's she working as a social worker?
That's the only job that she could get.
But where? Where is
New York, New York City.
And for the city itself?
It's for the city. It's for kids. Mm-hmm. Basically,
I'm surprised at the okay, she's pulling down 30. Okay, but what's her benefit package like? What's her pension package like in the city there?
Oh, as a city employee now, what they did, I mean, they took everybody's pensions and put them into a, they basically just what did they do? Invest. And so their pension will rise and fall as a bit. But I don't even think that matters.
Well, they're not going to get a pension then.
I don't think that even matters for her because she was hired after a certain time. I think you have to be an employee in the city for several years to be able to hold on to any kind of pension.
These city jobs, I mean, like they're a joke.
And I looked it up in the list of lowest paying jobs out there based on how much money it costs to educate people. People working in social work are getting paid very little, their education costs more money.
I'm treading on difficult ground here, but they don't do a lot.
What are you talking about?
Social workers.
Why are we whispering?
Because Heather's one.
Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ. What fuck? That's it. You're just going to have to go and get a pillow and smother her. So
I think Heather is one of the few people in the world who's very well suited to that particular line of work, and she does a great job.
I'll pump up the audio.
Her ass off.
I'm pumping up the audio when you say that, so she can hear you.
But of all the ones, and I've met some people that she works with that are fantastic, and there are
it's like social,
and
workers.
They do a lot. However, some of them do, but like at the end of the day, really. Mostly what a social worker does is to learn what the government programs are and steer people towards them. And can a fucking retard can do that.
I want to ADR this so that you say, social workers suck, but Heather is good. Something like that. Just Heather is a good social worker.
Yeah, well, I don't want to berate the entire concept because that is insulting, what Heather chose to do with her life, and she made a good choice, like because she's good at it. She's very good at it. She honestly does it to help people.
Does Heather work with children?
No, Heather works for the Veterans Administration.
Ah, yes. Okay. See, that's very. My friend Mark, his wife is also a social worker. Boy, we're just going to be dissing people we know tonight, huh?
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. You know what? They go into the job with the greatest expectations. Most of the time, these people get into this line of work because they seriously, truly want to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's usually what happens.
And it's true. And I know Heather's still there, and she does. And now I've been to like some group parties and stuff where I've seen like really at the end of the day, a lot of these people should probably be fired.
Okay.
They just most of them, and I think that probably Heather would agree that a bunch of them really don't serve much of a purpose.
You're going to go to a party next week, and somebody's going to say, "I heard what you said about me, you cocksucker," and then throw a drink in your face.
And you know what? I'll take it. That's fine. It's fine with me. I'm really only being honest about it.
All of this goes back to the push-pull logic of baby boomer parents. They raise their children to make them believe they can accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. A child born with no legs will delude his or herself into thinking they can be the #1 draft pick in the NBA. And this is where entitlement comes into it. So they have unrealistic expectations. We see what I believe was described as malevolent, malignant breed of narcissism. Growing up in
looking at Obama,
right, for social conquest. Not necessarily. This was starting a long time. There's a line in a Dirty Harry movie called Magnum Force where Clint Eastwood says at the end, "A man's got to know his limitations." So do kids. Kids have to know their limitations. That way they can succeed and profit in a world they can understand. Right.
Well, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. Well, I want a kid, especially a kid. I want a kid to dream as big as he possibly can, and then I want him to fail and learn from the failure, and that's where we mess up. Well, we don't want to discourage people from dreaming as big as possible, because then we'll be discouraging the next. I hate to use Bill Gates as an example because he's such a piece of shit, but the next Bill Gates, the next guy who could start a gigantic computer corporation in his garage, if we were still allowed to do that kind of thing these days based on laws that we have in this country. We would be discouraging those dreams. And
can I interrupt to say,
you want
Bill,
them to dream big.
I interrupt to say Bill Gates did work in Linux systems also. So
yeah, and he stole a bunch of other shit. Fuck him.
I know what you're saying.
I have some good things to say about Bill Gates.
All I'm saying is that kids, it's good to have dreams. Dreams are good for you. But you also have to be aware that there's so much out there that is against you from the moment you could crawl out of the womb.
If you do lose your legs, if you're born without legs, there are guys who have been born without legs that still fucking compete in tournaments, because they get prosthetics and they fucking run their ass. They train like maniacs and they bust their ass.
And they do a hell of a lot more than I will ever do in the course of a day. Yeah.
I don't want to shut that down. But what I do want to do is what we need to do is everybody from the individual all the way up to the big bank. When they fail, they have to pay the price for their failure. When they borrow a bunch of money to go to school, they've got to pay it back, or they've got to declare bankruptcy. And there's got to be they should be able to declare bankruptcy at this point, because they've been given a fucking set of they were told a bunch of stuff that isn't true. And frankly, they should be able to renege after that fact.
Are you talking about the kids with the student loans?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, exactly.
At the moment, it is illegal for them. It is illegal for them to. They cannot discharge that loan in a bankruptcy, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
I think
that was Bush. Didn't Bush do that?
Sold. Yeah, it was done under Bush, and I think the Republicans and Bush at the end of right before the 2006 election, they did that.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. It's terrible.
It's horrible, because we were having problems with student loans, and they take money out of your freaking taxes. We were never permitted to benefit from tax returns or any of that stimulus stuff that they were handing out because for about like 4 or 5 years, because they took that money and applied it to the damn student loan.
Right, and that's crazy. I like seriously when you like I really do feel that a lot of the student loan debt was built up. Some of it was irresponsible, but at the end of the day, what was really irresponsible was our leaders and our selling our parents and our children a whole bill of goods that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Telling them to go and get any degree possible because that's going to make everything fine. And it wasn't fine. And these things should be able to be discharged in bankruptcy, and fuck the banks if they go under because of it.
You realize also that a lot of these people, these kids, were out there during that Occupy Wall Street thing, bitching about their student loans. Meanwhile, they were rather irresponsible. Because I don't, like I said, I don't think you should ever go to a university to be a movie star.
So were the people that were taking out loans that they couldn't afford to pay back on houses.
Yeah,
there were a lot of people. The banks shouldn't have given it to them. The banks shouldn't have been out there looking for fucking people who could just fog a mirror to give a loan to. But then those people shouldn't have misrepresented their income or put themselves out there to borrow that money either.
And then there's also these predatory tactics that these credit card companies they put out these tables and they make these students fill in applications for credit cards.
Yeah, but they still have to charge stuff on that card, don't they? They still do. At the end of the day, it's like there's wrong on both sides. Like, you got the credit card companies like the junkies handing out the cards, but then, at the end of the day, man, they got to put that credit card, snort that up their nose, like they got to spend the money on that card, in order for there to be a debt. It's wrong on both sides, and it's lying on both sides and fraud a lot of the time on both sides. And all of these things. Like one of our major problems in our society these days is we don't have any accountability anywhere. There's no real rule of law that's applied equally across all of us. There's no consequences for our actions, and we don't want consequences for our actions. We're always looking to get out of them. We're always looking to get our kids out of them. We're always looking to get our politicians out of them. Yeah. If they're a member of our party or whatever, we're always trying to stop, something from applying to them. And at the end of the day, what we really need is equal justice across all of us. And
that's never going to happen. Sorry.
I know. But look, I wouldn't say it's never going to happen. I would say that the collapse has to happen first.
Well, I'll have to die first before that happens.
Well, you may die in the collapse. We all may die in the collapse.
So I think this is why we're pushing our kids more in school at younger ages. We have this thing in New York schools, at least. I don't know if they have it in your neck of the woods. It's called Common Core.
Yeah, well, that is another social engineering effort that is meant to close the deal.
Yeah. And
that what they are trying to do now, what I believe that Common Core is all about, and we have gotten rid of it here in South Carolina, sort of. What Common Core is about is Woodrow Wilson once said that the goal of a liberal education is to take a student and remove that student from what their parents taught them as much as humanly possible. That's a paraphrase. Okay? But that is what they are doing here. What they are doing is making their parents and the children unable to relate to each other with what their schoolwork is.
Well, let me tell you.
This is social engineering to the nth degree. They are trying to build a wedge between you and your child. And I, for one, as a parent, will not stand for it. I will not allow my child to be put anywhere that has common.
What are you singing?
We need an education. We don't need that.
We need an edumacation. That's what we need.
Have you read about Common
Core? We need
to
get edumated.
Shit that goes on with it, dude.
So, this is for applied mathematics, I guess. It's a different way to learn and study math. I know this, but my daughter is doing incredible. She is excelling at this, and I am looking at this stuff. I'm not a math person. I'm not good at it. But even Bronwyn, who gets straight A's, really good at math, she's looking at this Common Core. So I was like, how the hell are you doing? Okay, you got ones, you got tens, and you got hundreds. Okay, how are you construct? She's trying to learn with Regan about math, how it's being done now. But Regan gets incredible grades, much better than I ever got. She got a 96 on a math test this week, and the teacher went and grabbed me and said that was the highest grade in the class. And I'm like, I'm proud and I'm beaming. But I remember when I was in second grade, it wasn't anything like this. She comes home with piles of homework. I don't think I started getting serious homework until maybe the fourth grade, maybe. But they're starting these kids early, and I understand the logic, though. Get them out there, get them to understand right away, get them to embrace competition, because it's going to get a lot more competitive for these kids growing up. And maybe
I'm okay with that idea. I don't believe that this is at all benevolent what they're trying to do here.
What you said, though, you said social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that's the logic. Yes, that is social engineering. And social engineering is what? It's like basically a form of eugenics, right?
Well, I don't know if it's not really. I wouldn't say it's eugenics. It's just it's a concerted effort to steer a generation in a certain way. I guess that could be like eugenics, but eugenics, you're killing people in order to do that.
In eugenics, there is a way. I guess we're not talking Hitler here, but there was I remember. A lot of people got behind the idea of eugenics back in the turn of the century, and people like H.G. Wells,
Margaret
was a
Sanger.
proponent.
H.G. Wells was a proponent. H.G. Wells. Well, H.G. Wells was really he was a big progressive at the time, and that's really the progressive movement's always been. It's really never changed. They called themselves liberals for a while, and then when they ruined that label, because they ruined the progressive label during the progressive era, and then they became liberals, and then when they ruined the liberal label, they became progressives again.
And wasn't that around the time when the Democratic Party and the Republican Party were one party? Democratic Republicans,
and they
right?
still are one party. It's all a sham.
Well, we have the two separate now, but back then they were one group, right?
No, not really. No, you're talking like in the Theodore Roosevelt Bull Moose, and then where basically they both became a vehicle for suppressing the will of the people. Mm-hmm. To override the will of the people, to divide the vote of the people so that they could get into power and do what they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And that was where, Theodore Roosevelt was that way, Woodrow Wilson was that way. And then came along somebody, the will of the people said, fuck you all. And then came along
independence.
It was a Republican, actually. It was it was Harding and Coolidge. Mm-hmm. Harding died, and Coolidge took over. And Coolidge made huge fucking changes that rolled back a ton of all the government that progressivism had created. Almost all of it. He cut it back 75%. There's a very interesting story in there of a depression that occurred that was just as bad as the Great Depression in 1920. Mm-hmm. But the reason we don't hear about it, the reason we're never taught about it, is another social engineering thing. The solution to that problem was not what our leaders now want to do as a solution for such a problem, so they do not teach it to anyone what was done. And the solution was he cut the shit out of government and cut the shit out of taxes.
Right.
Right. But and that was what brought in the Roaring '20s. And then the Roaring '20s got out of hand when after Coolidge, we had what's his name, Schmuckface, the douchebag that brought in the Depression. Why can't I think of his name?
Hoover? No,
Hoover.
Not.
Yes,
Hoover.
Yes.
Okay.
He was
I got that right.
Not liked by. He was not the same kind of guy. Not the same kind of. His governmental philosophy was nothing like Coolidge's. He was like a George H.W. Bush to Ronald Reagan. He was a quote unquote moderate, but really what he was a fucking progressive.
Okay.
So he comes in and he starts causing all kinds of trouble. He starts bailing out banks when they're getting into trouble. He starts doing all kinds of intervention policies. And what does that do? That causes the Great Depression.
Right, that too big to fail philosophy.
And what are we taught in school? What was I taught? I was taught that Hoover was laissez-faire, which is complete and total bullshit. If you go back and read the actual articles in the newspapers of the time, you will not find anything like that. And as a matter of fact, Roosevelt ran against Hoover with his campaign, the crux of his campaign was that Hoover was going to drive the United States into socialism with his interventionist policies, and that Roosevelt would turn it around. And what did Roosevelt do? Pulled an Obama, went in there and fucking tripled down on it when he got into office after running against it.
You're talking about FDR, yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right. The one thing I have to say, and I know this is going to piss people off.
Don't do it then.
Television has helped. Television shows for children. Now, we were talking about this earlier because I'm working on something like this. But anyway, they're educational for the most part. I'm going to say that more than 90% of children's programming is geared toward education. It's an invaluable teaching tool. Regan is extremely interested in science, and it is no doubt due to the kinds of shows she watches. She like has an aptitude for like geology, mathematics and nature. She loves animals, life sciences, etymology, botany. She's already talking about becoming a naturalist, and I told her about the requirements. She would have to go to university, get a doctorate. She's completely jazzed about doing that.
How does she think about the polar bears being extinct because of global warming?
They're the fiercest killers in the animal kingdom.
But like, no, but seriously, dude, like, because a lot of that stuff is also social engineering, and as a parent, you got to watch out for that shit, man. You can't fucking just allow it to go unchecked.
Well, she is telling me shit about animals I never knew. She's got
but then she's also learning shit that you don't know she's learning. You got to be,
Plus,
be
she's
up
a girl,
stuff.
So she has like the preoccupations of that. I mean, she plays with dolls, but she also, she wants to go outside all the time. She wants to run around. She doesn't always watch TV, which is great. She gets tired of it too. She'll like want to go outside, which is nice. I mean, I hear so many stories about the kids today sitting on the couch and getting fat, I guess, and watching TV and all that. But she doesn't. Yeah. She's so energetic. She just wants to run around all the time. But she really wants to study this stuff. I mean, like, she wants to.
Can I ask you, how much do you restrict her television watching, just out of curiosity?
You know what happens? When I get her home from school, I let her have a little break time, and she watches a couple of shows on TV, and then she goes and does her homework. And
that's good.
And then after that, she just likes to play. She doesn't really like to sit and watch TV all
But if she asks, can she have it? Like,
can she watch TV? She asked me.
Yeah.
No, not really. She doesn't do that. I just sort of...
Jack is allowed a half hour a day.
The thing, like I said, this is educational TV, so if it has an educational component to it, I'll let her watch. Like, she watched a show called Wildcrats, which she just loves. It's about these two guys who go all over the world and look at interesting animals, and they study them and all that stuff. She's really into it.
That sounds cool. I'm not familiar with the show. So, yeah, well, I like Jack to unplug when he comes home. Like I want him. He's been at school all day, and I want him to, like, if he wants to watch something that's educational, that's fine. But if he wants to watch something he wants to watch, that's fine too.
The kids are under an enormous amount of pressure. They get a lot. They have to do a lot in school, and then she comes home with all this homework. It's usually math, reading, spelling, and then some kind of special project. It's like 4 pieces of homework every night that she has to do, and she manages to get it done. I have to supervise her. I help her out. Yeah. And then she has homework over the weekend.
Well, how old is Regan?
She's 8.
8. Okay.
And it's 2nd grade. I mean, this is...
Yeah. Well, Jack's just going into 1st grade, so...
But there's
so
Jack's
much
in
homework.
1st grade.
Jack's in 1st grade now. He's in 1st grade now. I'm sorry.
Right.
But he's How much
homework are they giving him?
None. And he's in Montessori.
Oh, he's in Montessori, so he's not really in... Actually, with Montessori, they might move him ahead, which I wouldn't advise, by the way, because I was in Montessori when I was a kid.
The Montessori I was in New York was way different than this. This is rocking. I mean, he's really doing really well.
What happened with me was I skipped a grade because I was in Montessori, and they deemed that the Montessori education was far ahead of the public school system at the time. So I skipped a grade, and that really screwed me up. I was never able to get
Jack's Montessori is going to go all the way up until high school. Wow. So he's good in there. It goes all the way through 8th grade.
So at least he'll have free community college later on. That is
he's light years ahead of all the kids in the area who go to public school. He's doing very, very well. I just It's interesting that she watches a little bit more TV than he does. Heather used to, because in my opinion, I think he should be able to watch a little bit more than he does, but that's just my opinion.
Well, Regan is unusual because she's not really like me and Bronwyn. Me and Bronwyn, we're not like the most congenial people, I guess. Regan is extremely friendly, and people love her, and you know, they see her on the street and they yell at her name, and all these kids they just love her. And she's also she's a very beautiful girl. She's never going to have any problem with you know, social skills or anything like that.
Yeah,
she gets into
great.
science. She is going to be just incredible.
That's awesome.
I just don't want her to lose interest in that because you know how girls are. I mean, they're under a lot of pressure just being girls. They get it from all sides. They get it from other girls, and they get it from society. I don't, you know.
Oh, you know, yeah, it's true. I mean, my ex was she was a biology major, and she's always very good in science. She's one of those millennials who's a fucking complete waste of time. But she was good at school, and she was good in science. I'm sure Regan will beat her pants off someday.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But
yeah.
And let me see. I wanted to read a section of this thing with the Brett Easton Ellis, what he wrote here. He was talking about millennials. So he has a boyfriend. He's openly gay. And all
he's
that.
a queer.
And the boyfriend is younger than him. He's 27. And he's exasperated.
A cradle robbing queer.
What does it say? I've been living with someone from the millennial generation for the last 4 years. He's now 27. And sometimes I'm charmed and sometimes I'm exasperated by how him and his friends, as well as millennials I've met, interacted with both in person and in social media, deal with the world. I've tweeted about my amusement and frustration. So my huge generalities touch on their oversensitivity, their insistence that they are right, despite the overwhelming proof that suggests they are not.
About my frustrations, will you just shoot me in the head, please? Just promise me that, okay, please?
Okay. Well,
thank you. All right,
well, you have a couple of guns in the house. I can just go to your house.
Yeah. You can just hit me with the shotgun. It's fine. Just
so the lack of placing things within context, overreacting, passive aggressive positivity, which is just that's a really I
love his article, by the way. I'm just making fun of his article is really, it did need kind of a more of a beginning, middle, and end, but in terms of writing, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's more of an anecdote than anything else. But I'm going to put a link up to it on when this episode comes out so that people can see. But there is this narcissism. I mean, this is the last subject I wanted to touch on is this culture that we have now when people are taking pictures of themselves. And yes, I'm an old man. I'm calling them the selfies. We take the selfies of ourselves,
The selfies. I have the selfie stick. I bring it with me everywhere I go. And I take the stick and I stick it out and I take a selfie.
Okay.
Did you they banned the selfie stick at all kinds of museums all over the place because they're afraid that stuff is going to get broken?
Oh wow!
There was an article about it last week. It's at the Louvre. You can't have a selfie stick.
That's so fresh. That just sounds. I'm gonna say it. It sounds fucking sexy.
Sounds like a Lady Gaga song, is what it sounds like.
My selfie stick. My selfie stick.
I want to touch you with this selfie stick.
Oh, Lordy. But the thing is, okay, I like to look at pictures of, let's say, women who are easy on the eyes.
Pictures of women? You like to look at pictures of loose women? Is that what you're saying?
No. They look pretty damn tight to me.
They're tight? Oh, that's good.
No, well, I look at, actresses. There are these actresses that are very beautiful. Sometimes I like to look at pictures of them, right? But they have these sites up, these Instagram sites. And what they are, basically, they take their nice little camera phones and take pictures of themselves everywhere. It's like, this is me happy, this is me sad, this is me at a party, this is me alone.
It's all fake. And that's the thing that saddens me about this generation. It's like so much is fake. Everything is fake.
The generation is so far up its own ass that if it tried to pull itself out, you know.
But you know, you catch yourself doing these things. I remember, like, I was at a concert last year, and I caught myself. I'm like waiting for them to come out and play a song that I want to see them play. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I got my fucking cell phone all set to record this shit.
Oh shit!
And I'm like all ready for it. And I'm like, wait a minute. When this comes on, I'm going to be standing here watching it on my phone screen while I record it rather than actually experiencing being here live. And I'm doing that so that I can show somebody else miles away that I probably haven't seen in 20 years that I'm here.
Where you were at that moment.
Yeah, where I was, but I wasn't experiencing it. I was giving up the experience in order to tell other people about it and be a fucking narcissist, you know?
I have some friends, and sometimes they take pictures of the meals that they have either made or ordered at a restaurant.
I've done that a couple of times.
Now, the thing about it is, I understand if a plate looks impressive or something, but wouldn't it be much more impressive if we just showed what the food will eventually look like in the toilet before you flush it? Now, what I'm encouraging people to do is to take pictures of their own feces and call it...
There is a website for that, I think.
Call it shitties. Call it shitties. I'm taking a shitty.
Hey, I'm taking a shitty.
Get it? I'm taking a shitty. I think that's because...
By the way, I have a picture for that. Remind me, and I will give it to you to put on the notes for this. The picture of taking a shitty. I have the perfect picture for that.
Just put it. Just put it in the toilet. It's like Homer Simpson once said when he was drunk in the bar. He says, "So I said, red M&M, brown M&M, they're all the same color in the end." And that's pretty much it for BlissVille. Do you have anything else you want to add? Or are we done?
No, I'm done. I think I've ruined our entire narrative enough as it is.
We've mocked, and we've created enough enemies tonight. I'm Dave Lawler, and that was Andrew Legang. And
remember that it's LAG.
LAG.
Yeah, that's the guy. Go after him. Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you didn't,
fuck you.
Do I care?